Welcome back to the Warehouse Podcast, everyone. My name's Eli. I'm here with the distinct honor of recapping a sweep. The Orioles sweep the Reds in Cincinnati. Cincinnati, who came into the series above 500. Cincinnati, who is often in the conversation as one of the more exciting young teams in baseball. And I think a lot of people would say the most exciting young team in baseball if the Orioles did not exist. Um, yeah, our starting pitching was absolutely phenomenal. John Means returns, makes his season debut, and just looks phenomenal. Maybe looks better than every version of John Means that we've seen besides no-hitter John Means. Um, so before I get too far into that, I do want to thank the sponsor of this show. Bet Online is your number one source for all your summer sports this season, from MLB, golf, NBA, and NHL playoff stats. Get all the latest stats, news, and scores available to follow your favorite teams. Get the latest odds and lines, including the latest team matchups, player props, and odds on just about every sport out there. Head to the website today, betonline.ag, or use your mobile device to get in on the action. Bet Online, where the game starts. Um, so so the Orioles sweep. The Orioles have this phenomenal series. We continue to cement ourselves as one of the best teams in baseball. Pretty much everybody that we go visit, except for whatever reason, the Oakland Athletics, when they came to visit us, pretty much everybody that we see, we take 2 of 3 or we sweep. That it's as simple as that. We are winning series. We are doing the thing, and let's get into it. So, game 1 of this series, the Orioles take it 3-0. It was a scoreless game until the top of the 7th. Hunter Green was on the mound against us. A vaunted arm coming up through the Reds system. Obviously, he's got triple-digit velocity as a starter. That always makes some waves. He threw a lot of pitches in this game, but he made it through 5 2/3 scoreless. Fernando Cruz, owner of one of the most dominant splitters in the game, one of the highest whiff pitches in the league right now, helped bridge to Emilio Pagan in the 7th inning. Jorge Mateo singled, stole second base before a gunner sac fly pushed him to third. Adley then doubled to right center. This was almost caught by Jake Fraley, not quite though. So Adley gets the double and the RBI before Ryan O'Hearn. I've started calling him Rhino, just as in the rhino with the 2 horns and everything, because it's Ryan O. I like it. I'm riding with it. It's just for me, but the Rhino himself, he hits a 2-run bomb on a cutter down the middle from Emilio Pagan. This dude just continues to rake. I just heard on Baseball Barbecast, the Cespedes Family Barbecue guys, they just did another little thing on him. He is second in xWOBA after Shohei Ohtani. So just the quality of his contact. He has walked more. He has struck out less. He is doing everything you could possibly ask for a hitter, except hit left-handed pitching, and we don't need him to do that. So it's just fine. We're fine with it, really. So Ryan O'Hearn, 2-run bomb to make it 3-0. This entire time, Cole Irvin has just been dealing in the background. He finishes with 6 1/3, scoreless, 2 hits, no walks, and he strikes out 4. Couple little things to note about Irvin's outing. Threw under 12 pitches per inning. He was incredibly efficient. He was only at 72 pitches when he was pulled. I think this made a lot of Orioles fans on Twitter mad because we've got nothing better to do with our time these days than get mad at little things. So people were upset that Cole Irvin was coming out. I was, I would like to see Cole Irvin throw a complete game too. Don't get me wrong. But at the same time, it's not the worst thing in the world. Irvin had a great outing. One interesting note, he threw his curveball 51% of the time. That's correct. 1 of every 2 pitches was his curveball. His yearly average is 30%. A little bit more on Irvin, and you'll kind of notice that trend. The Orioles threw a lot of breaking balls, the Orioles starters. And I think they, exposed a hole in this Cincinnati approach, the Cincinnati offense, and dominated as a result. So Cole Irvin comes out after 6 1/3. Yennier Cano finishes up the 7th inning. Danny Coulomb has a clean 8th. And then Craig Kimbrell, who had been on that brief hiatus for a small back issue, he makes a triumphant return Clean inning for the save, struck out the side, just dominant. We get into game 2. John Means Day for all those who observe. The Orioles were up against Andrew Abbott, who really did have a good year last year, kind of a sneaky good year. He does not have incredible stuff, but just he keeps his fastball at the top of the zone. He just does the little things right, and had a lot of success last year. So the Orioles would go on to win 2-1. Game was scoreless into the 4th inning. Once again, Jorge Mateo. He was a fan not favorite last year, but the dude has been producing. He has been doing everything we ask of him. He's here to stay. He is here to stay, whether you like him or not. And if he keeps producing the way that he is, he's going to be in every lineup against a left-handed pitcher. That just is the way that it is. He connects on his second home run in 3 games, a solo shot in the 4th, make it 1-0. In the 5th, Adley connects on another solo shot. He continues to hit lefties at an absolutely ludicrous clip. I'm going to chat a little more on that later, but Adley Rutschman versus left-handed hitters is one of the most dominant. He is Ryan O'Hearn against right-handed hitters, or right-handed pitchers. I'm sorry. There is this insane thing that happens when Adley moves from one side of the plate to the other. And right now, when he is on the right side of the plate, he is hitting the crap out of the ball. He's going to be my little fun fact of the day. I found something, kind of a cool little nugget on that. So stay tuned for that at the end of the show. But all this time, the way that Cole Irvin in the background of the last recap was just dealing the whole time, John Means has been dealing in this recap. He throws 7 scoreless in his debut. He allows only 3 hits. He walks nobody, and he strikes out 8. John Means is notably not a strikeout pitcher. He gets insanely weak contact by, just flirting with the changeup and the fastball combo. He keeps hitters off balance. He does not strike people out, though. He featured his signature changeup. It was the most thrown pitch. But if you lump the slider and the curveball together, he does have 2 distinct breaking balls. But for the sake of argument here, if you lump them together, they were used just as much as that changeup was, and more than the fastball. Once again, I think Orioles featuring more breaking balls than they normally would. This was out of line with, Means's pitch distributions in previous years and previous starts. Obviously, he hasn't thrown this year. So caveat that this could just be something they like with John Means, but given the uptick with Cole Irvin's breaking ball usage, and you'll see Dean Kremer featuring the cutter more so than his fastball, it seems to say that the Orioles, noticed this weakness against breaking balls in the Cincinnati lineup, and they attacked it. So John Means, 7 scoreless. He could not have looked better. Struck out 8. Cionel Perez throws a scoreless 8th. The Orioles bring in Kimbrel to hold down the 2-0 lead. Kimbrel does a Kimbrel. I don't know. He did have this brief hiatus. He had this little back problem. It was only a couple days. So having pitched the night before, there's a chance that, it just didn't feel perfect. And maybe we just need to sit him down for a full week or something like that. Throw him on the 15-day IL. We definitely are not in a point where the bullpen can really handle that, can take that right now. We rely on the back end of our bullpen as much as anybody, as much as any team in the league. And so, maybe until Tyler Wells comes back and gets pushed back to the bullpen, that's maybe not an option for us. But at the same time, if your closer cannot go on 2 consecutive days, that is a weakness. You need to be able to win 2 close games in a row. It's only 2. Anyway, so as to what actually happened, Kimbrel comes in the 9th with a 2-0 lead, lets up a single to Jake Fraley. He walks Jonathan India, and he strikes out Elly De La Cruz for the 2nd night in a row before giving up an RBI single to Spencer Steer. The Orioles then bring in Yennier Cano. He allows a stolen base right off the bat. He walks Tyler Stevenson to load the bases, and then strikes out Christian Encarnacion Strand, and Jeimer Candelario flies out. The game ends with the tying run on 3rd base, the go-ahead run, the winning run, I should say, because bottom of the 9th, the winning run on 2nd base, and just a spare bonus run sitting over at 1st base. It's another really shaky appearance from Kimbrel. We definitely would like to see more consistency out of him. That is, we saw it the night before, punching out the side. He is so dominant when he's locked in, when he is right. But unfortunately just did not have it in game 2. Thankfully, in game 3, he was not needed in any way, shape, or form. Game 3, much less of a nail biter. The O's take it 11-1. The 1 should not have happened, but it did. We'll get to that. O's score 3 in the first off of Nick Lodolo. Nick Lodolo, who really is a talented left-handed pitcher, one of the better sliders, sweepers in the game. He, right off the bat, Orioles score 3 off of him, off of a Mountcastle double. Santander plates the first run of the game with an RBI single. Jordan Westberg with a 2-run home run to right field. Once again, opposite field pop for Jordan Westberg just continues to show. He just loves to take a fastball, center cut, middle out, and poke it over the right field fence. It's been phenomenal, and that approach has seemingly worked for him. Obviously, he's been good this year. Love to see that from Jordan Westberg. So action continued in the 5th inning after Ramon Urias was hit by a pitch. Adley's daily double plates him. In the 7th, we get a Ryan McKenna solo shot. I was joking. I was playing my own baseball game. I was sitting in the dugout, and there's another Baltimorean. He went to Poly for high school. He, is Baltimore through and through. And he was asking me how the game was going. And, I said to him, I was like, well, this is something that can make you either happy or sad. But Ryan McKenna just hit a bomb. And, he is one of these people that the people pushing to get the Kyle Stowerses, Kobe Mayos, Connor Norby's of the world up onto this team, they do not like Ryan McKenna. And I fully understand that. Ryan McKenna does not necessarily have a place on a World Series team. That might not even be fair to say. Ryan McKenna probably, could serve as a 4th or 5th outfielder on a World Series team. He has a spot in the major leagues, definitely, and he could be the center fielder for some of the worst teams in the league right now. He is not a bad player, and much to the chagrin of Orioles Twitter, he's actually been producing a little bit since he came up. The defense does not look great. He did let a couple balls drop that probably should not have been, and defense is really the calling card. But solo shot today. Adley drives home Ramon Urias again after Ramon doubled. We are at 6-0 heading into the 9th. The Reds bring in their closer, Alexis Diaz, brother of Edwin. Great low 3/4 slot, good action on the fastball, good action on the slider. Presumably just to get some work. They had not seen him the previous couple days because they came into the 9th with losing the game. They came into the 9th losing the game in each of the previous 2 games. They've got a day off tomorrow or today. I'm recording this on the 6th. So Alexis Diaz comes in to get some work. He wanted some work, and the Orioles gave him the work. Right off the bat, McKenna walk, Hauser double. That makes it 7-0. Ramon Urias single, Gunnar Henderson walk, and then Adley K's, and Diaz leaves the game with the bases loaded, only having recorded 1 out. Emilio Pagan enters, strikes out Ryan Mountcastle, and then Anthony Santander blasts the ball into right center field for a grand slam. The game is now at 11-0 entering the bottom of the 9th. Before I talk the bottom of the 9th, I'm going to recap the rest of the pitching. So, as has been the theme in each of these game recaps, in the first one, Cole Irvin was dealing in the background. Second one, John Means dealing in the background while I talk about the offense. Here it's Dean Kremer. He goes 6 1/3 scoreless. Once again, featuring the cutter more than his 4-seam, not the norm for this year. Again, I think that the Orioles were saying, throw breaking balls, throw breaking balls, throw breaking balls. Do not work fastballs against these guys. Dean exits after 6 1/3. I actually lied to you. It was 6 flat. Yeah, I wrote 6.1, but it was 6.0. Albert Suarez threw 2 1/3 to get into the 9th with 1 out. That's what it was. Yeah, so Dean Kremer is 6 scoreless, 6 flat. Albert Suarez throws two and a third. He looks great. Strikes out the leadoff hitter in the 9th inning, and Mike Baumann comes on. Baumann proceeds to walk Will Benson, walk Elly De La Cruz, kind of a bloop single into center field, another single into center that was very much not a bloop, plates Will Benson, and then a backwards K and a flyout to end the game. It's only a 1 run. Game ends at 11-1. Disappointing outing from Baumann, but in the interest of not ending a recap of an 11-1 win on such a sour note, just want to circle back to Anthony Santander. 3 for 4, 5 RBIs on the game, added a walk for good measure. If the Orioles get Santander hot, I'm telling you, this offense is already approaching the conversation of the top 5 in baseball or so. I think we are really getting into the conversation with the Braves and the Dodgers as to, one of the top offenses in baseball. We do not have a Ronald Acuna. We do not have, a Shohei Ohtani, Mookie Betts, of course. But we do have a Gunnar Henderson, and I think that our lineup is definitely deeper than the Dodgers. 1 to 9, we pester pitchers the entire way through the game. And, the Braves have more depth than the Dodgers. They are not quite the Braves that had Ozzie Albies hitting like 6th, 7th a couple years ago. So I think from a depth perspective, from a consistent pressure from the lineup, you are getting that from the Orioles in a way that you're not with almost any team in the major leagues right now. The offense is so good. You see that we are leading the league in home runs. I think, 2nd or 3rd in runs scored. Love the Orioles offense right now. So to just kind of debrief from this series, it is about starting pitching. That is the name of the game for me. They threw 19 and a third scoreless. Irvin 6 and a third, Means 7, Kremer 6. I don't know why I wrote Kremer 6 here and I wrote 6 and a third up top, but I got it right here. Kremer 6 flat. They allowed 6 hits in that entire time. Irvin allowed 2, Means allowed 3, Kremer only allowed 1 in his 6 innings. Once again, 6 flat. And they only allowed 1 walk. Irvin walked nobody, Means walked nobody, Kremer walked 1. This puts us, in this shocking situation. It's totally foreign. I joked about it on my last recap because we talked about Alfredo Simon and how he was a comp for Albert Suarez. And, we talked about how Alfredo Simon was endemic of the Orioles just mediocre pitching. The Orioles have an incredible starting rotation right now. I mean, truly, truly one of the best in the game. Corbin Burns is obviously, he's Corbin Burns. He is the man we went to get. Kyle Bradish came back and looked very much himself. Cole Irvin has gone 3 consecutive starts of at least 6 and a third scoreless. He has a 0.6 whip in 20 innings across those starts. He hasn't needed more than 93 pitches to get into the 7th inning in any of those starts. He's been efficient. He has limited base runners. He still doesn't strike out a ton, but that's just not who he is. And I guess the other thing to note about this is it's not against total slouches, right? It's against the Kansas City Royals, who are 5 games above 500, as I record this on Monday. Against Oakland, who is a game under 500. Obviously, not a World Series contender, but also took 2 of 3 from us. And Cincinnati, who were above 500 until this series that I'm just describing to you now. So, 3 pretty solid teams, 3, maybe inexperienced teams. Maybe this shows that Irvin is a veteran and has the experience to, just kind of out game plan, out pitch a team like these younger guys. Whatever it is, he has been so consistently phenomenal, so efficient, saving the bullpen. You cannot possibly ask for more from a guy that, we gave up Darrell Hernandez, who has made it up with the Athletics and for all intents and purposes is a talented player, but had no position on this Orioles team. We give him away, and Cole Irvin turning into this starter that he is. Yeah, you cannot complain about that. You have to be excited about what the Orioles are doing here. John Means came back, and as I described, he was phenomenal. He looked every bit the guy you dream of him being, except maybe even with more strikeouts, because once again, 8 strikeouts in 7 innings Means is not a K guy. If I, I will put my hand up, I was very skeptical having seen how rough his AAA outings were going, how the Orioles were kind of running up against the end of the window, for which they could keep him down there on this rehab stint. They were butting up against it because, quite frankly, it wasn't looking very good. He clearly had to be extended more. And so I was not expecting this, whatever this was, whatever this goodness was. This is not what I was expecting. And you have to be so excited about the prospect of, a John Means returning to his 2021 form before all the injuries, and just holding down, the fourth slot in this rotation. The last guy currently in our starting five is Dean Kremer. And, he has been there for us since he made the rotation in 22. He has been such a solid, low fours ERA kind of guy, striking out 8 to 9 per nine, just very, very solid pitcher, and somebody who deserves to be in every major league rotation, except maybe like the Mariners and, and potentially ours eventually, if things keep going the way they are. But he is also on a particularly good streak right now. He is also throwing particularly well. 2 starts ago, he struck out 10 against the Angels. Last start out, he went 7 flat, 2 earned runs against the Yankees. And then he had this scoreless start of 6 flat, against the Reds. Dean Kremer looks great right now. We had seen damage, on the cutter in previous years. That does not seem to be the case. He's comfortable featuring that. He is coming at you with this really wide arsenal. His changeup looks good. He's got the fastball and the sinker. He's got the curveball. He is a really, really, I guess, versatile pitcher. And yeah, he's throwing the ball great. So we've got 5 guys in the rotation right now that are all throwing the ball incredibly well. And Grayson Rodriguez is going to be back eventually. He did not exit his start due to this shoulder inflammation. It did seem like there was some effect from it just because his fastball command was a little bit off. That was covered in a previous recap. But at the same time, this isn't inflammation to the point where Grayson is out for the next month. He's on the 15-day IL. I'm sure he will, live out his time through those 15 days. And whenever it's his turn in the rotation, he'll be back up. So I guess, we've got 6 guys who you're not going to hold Grayson Rodriguez out of the rotation. So you got 5 guys here that are, really throwing the ball incredibly well. Corbin Burnes and Kyle Bradish are obviously not going anywhere. And it kind of comes down to Irvin, Means, and Kremer. I think that Means, if he were the 2021 version of himself, obviously he would be the guy. But that is not the case. He's missed, almost 2 full seasons of baseball since that time. And we've seen him throw 1 start, and he looked great. But, how will his body hold up as we go further into the year? That is a question. So do you move him to the pen to try to limit innings a little bit? Cole Irvin has often been talked about as the guy who moves to the pen eventually, but he might be throwing the ball best out of these 3 and has done it across 3 starts in a way that Means has not. And then you have Dean Kremer, who, maybe out of these 3, he only threw 6 scoreless. He only threw 6 scoreless, and the other 2 went 6 1/3 and 7 innings. So you could say he's doing the worst, and he walked somebody, and the other 2 didn't. But it's like, you're not pulling this guy out of the rotation who's been so good. I just talked to you about his last 3 starts. So the question becomes, what do the Orioles do here? Who is the guy that moves to the pen? I guess another note on Kremer that I meant to say was he also probably, I guess this kind of extends to all 3 of them. All 3 of them are not guys who you dream about the prospect of them playing up their stuff and like jumping up to 97, 98 on the fastball out of the pen. None of these guys are capable of that. They're all sort of the crafty and finesse types. So I do think it's a really, interesting question of who eventually is the one that goes, or do you stretch it to a 6-man rotation? Obviously, you are hindered by a 6-man rotation because you have one less person in the pen. There are limits on how many pitchers can be on the roster. But at the same time, the Orioles are in a unique position where we do have Keegan Aiken, Albert Suarez, and eventually a Tyler Wells, who all can give you bulk innings if you need that. We've seen Suarez is stretched out. I called a Suarez a 5 2/3 innings scoreless start. He can obviously throw bulk. Tyler Wells, got into the rotation last year after we had the injury, and he came in and threw 5 scoreless or whatever in relief. So, Keegan Aiken, obviously we've seen him go 2 or 3 innings 1,000 times on this team. Not always effectively, but if you are short-staffed, you can turn to him. And this year, his results have really been pretty good. So we do have multiple guys who are these bulk options. We do have, enough innings in the pen to, if you subtract a Mike Baumann and you add Tyler Wells, who can throw 3 innings, I think you're covering just as many innings per week, so to speak, that you would with the current bullpen with one more guy in it. So it's an interesting option. I think it's just a curious thing to think about. The Orioles are going to run into this. It's a great problem to have. The fact that we already kicked Albert Suarez to the pen when I talked to you about how unique his fastball is. Unique, like how dominant the changeup is. He's got this incredibly unique arsenal. He's very good. He had good results, and he just got kicked to the pen. It just is what it is. Excuse me. So you really you are thankful that you're in this position if you're the Orioles, but at the same time, somebody has to be the odd man out, or you have to change your game plan and stretch to that 6-man rotation, or possibly incur this risk of running short in your bullpen. So on the topic of the bullpen, the other thing I have to say here, I just mentioned him being the odd man out, but it's getting harder and harder for me to justify keeping Mike Baumann on this team. I am a fan of Mike Baumann. He has an incredible arsenal. I mentioned it during the spring training recap. I was talking about Wanda St. Charles at the time, and as I was doing this data dive on Wanda St. Charles, I kept seeing Mike Baumann's name on these leaderboards of induced vertical break for fastballs over this average velocity. 18 inches of vertical break of hop on your fastball at 95 to 97 miles an hour will always play. And that is why it's so tough with him, is because if you DFA him, he's gone. There's just no question about it. Plenty of teams in the league would love to add this guy to their pen and hope they can work it out. But it just hasn't been happening. With that fastball, you need to get it up in the zone so that it plays above bats. He does not always get it up in the zone. It becomes very hittable when it's just straight as an arrow and thigh high. He is walking over 5 guys per inning, a 12.3% walk rate. 1 in every 8 guys that he faces, he's walking. He's not really striking guys out. It's a relatively, pedestrian 23%. Average exit velocity against him is in the 10th percentile, over 91 miles an hour. Hard hit and ground ball percentages are also worse than league average. All I am saying is that when Tyler Wells is back and we need to make these decisions, you can go ahead and you can play with some of the guys who have options, which at this point, I believe are only, I think it is only Keegan Aiken who is still in the pen who has an option left. And so you can try to play with that. You can option Aiken for a couple weeks, see how things shake out. But, there is always, the Orioles front office mentality is always to do what they can to maximize the amount of talent that they're retaining. We see that with Ryan McKenna, for example, but at the same time, there is the other side of this equation that says we are such an unbelievably good team that it is time to put the best people on the field. A sixth inning reliever that may someday end up being an eighth inning reliever in Mike Baumann. That is not the guy that we need to sacrifice for. And I think there's a very valid argument in that. I think there's a valid argument in that if he can become an eighth inning guy and we're using him in the sixth inning, then that our team is just that much better. In my personal opinion, we've been doing this for years. I have nothing against Mike Baumann, but this is, he is out of options. He has been with, the Orioles system. He has been with our development for years at this point and has developed this really good stuff, but very simply has not put it together in a way that we need, and a way that, is befitting of a team that won 101 games and is trying to go capture a World Series this year. So interesting decisions coming up in the rotation and the bullpen. But last thing I'm going to give you guys, fun fact of the day. I talked about how well Adley is hitting lefties. I'm just going to slow down for 1 sec and say this very slowly because it deserves every syllable to be enunciated. Adley is hitting 482, 500, 768 against lefties. That is a 482 on base percentage, an even 500. I said on base. I was trying to do it slowly. I was trying to make it dramatic, and I just messed it up. So we're going to take it back. 482 batting average, 500 on base percentage, and 768 slugging. That is a 1268 OPS. He is dominating left-handed hitters. 4 of his home run or left-handed pitchers, 4 of his home runs have come against them. He is very much not doing that against right-handed pitching. And he has a 552 OPS against right-handed pitching. And again, I'm recording this on Monday, so this includes the whole Cincinnati series. And I went back and looked, and I was internally laughing because the problem with Adley in his rookie year was that he could not hit left-handed pitching as a righty. And now he cannot hit right-handed pitching as a lefty. And I was like, okay, well, how bad was it back then? Just to compare things. And I should stress, I'm not worried about Adley Rutschman in any way, shape, or form. This is 1 month of the season. I'm not worried about Adley against anybody on earth. He can handle himself. He will figure it out. But it is really hilarious because he ended his rookie year with a 552 OPS against lefties as a right-handed hitter. And everybody was saying, oh God, he really needs to figure that out. And currently, right now, on this day, May 6th, 2024, Adley has a 552 OPS against righties as a left-handed hitter. So the exact same OPS that we were all very concerned with, the exact same hitting we were concerned with from the right side, has now transitioned over to the right side, or has now transitioned over to the left side. And from the right side, he's pretty much God. He's pretty much God incarnate as a right-handed hitter. So it is unbelievable, just kind of the irony of that. Once again, I'm not worried about Adley Rutschman hitting as a left-handed hitter. He is a force to be reckoned with and will be very good throughout the rest of this year. He will be, the number 2 or 3 hitter in our lineup for the rest of the season, as he should be against everybody on earth. That's my fun fact. So up next, Orioles have 2 games against the Nationals in the nation's capital. Another little fun fact there, Tuesday, the game tomorrow, will be the first game ever where both teams are wearing their City Connect uniforms. They are doing this for the Beltway series. Should be pretty fun. I will note that the Nats actually have one of my favorite City Connect uniforms. I think that the cherry blossoms look incredible on the gray. So big fan of those. Nice to see them. I will obviously not be wearing a Nats one, but I will give a confession here. And I'm not looking for validation. I'm not looking for judgment. I'm just putting it out there and in hopes that other people can appreciate the same thing. I live in Florida, and I went to a Rays game this weekend, and they were wearing their City Connect uniforms. And the Rays City Connect uniforms are very cool. They're very cool. And their hats have like a manta ray, except it's like the two peaks of the Tampa Bay Bridge in the place of the manta rays, like little mouth thingies. I don't know what they're called, but the little two flappy guys coming off of coming off of the manta ray's mouth. They made that the two peaks of the suspension bridge, and it's like water reflecting off of it, but it looks awesome. And I got an all gray with the like neon colors hat. It's sitting over there. I'm staring at it as I say this. And I hope that other people can appreciate uniforms, even if they are not really fans. Like, I have no allegiance to the Rays, of course. I will stress that I will never, like, no matter how cool Yankees or Red Sox gear is, I will never go that far. There are limits to this, but we should appreciate the cool things that happen in baseball. That's how I see it. And this hat is one of the cooler things to happen in baseball in a while. I'm a big fan of it, so I copped one. Anyway, that's all I've got. If you would be so kind, subscribe to the show on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Any 5-star ratings, positive reviews, we are so, deeply, humbly thankful for them. They do help us grow. They help us expand. If you are on YouTube, definitely, leave a comment. I went through this whole thing about the bullpen, about the rotation, what you think the Orioles should do when Grayson returns, when Tyler Wells returns. And if you aren't on YouTube, come find us on Twitter at The Warehouse Pod. You can chat with us over there. The On the Verge Discord, we are in there. And you can email us at thewarehousepod@gmail.com. Thanks so much for your time, everyone. Really enjoyed this series against Cincinnati. I think that the Orioles continue to establish themselves firmly in the conversation as one of the best teams in baseball. It's a good time to be an O's fan. Have a good one.